The great.
Ready to go?
Ready to go.
Of course. Welcome back to the No Boring Stories podcast. I am Alex Street, your host, and this is the place where there are no boring stories. Thankfully, today, I've got my very good friend and our guest, Susanne Puerschel. Pause. Is that the name that you want me to use?
Yeah, totally. Oh my
There's
gosh, yes.
Crowder.
No, I am not a Crowder. I am Susanne Puerschel, for sure.
Okay. Welcome back to the No Boring Stories podcast. My name is, of course, Alex Street, and this is the place where there are no boring stories. And so thankfully today, we've got my very good friend on the show, Susanne Puerschel, and she has, does she ever have a story to tell? And we are going to talk all about her story. We're going to talk about storytelling through ballet and what comes up in that and how it's done. We're just going to have a good old time together. Susanne, how are you?
Oh, I am so good, first of all. Best day of my life, as my husband would say. And secondly, I am so grateful for having this conversation. Like, this has been not only overdue, but I'm also grateful that you are having this podcast and I get to share my story right here.
Yes, you host your own podcast, which is phenomenal. You've been doing that for what, just over a year?
Not even 8
Not even.
months, and we're at 108 episodes tomorrow.
Come on.
Yeah.
So what do you see in that? Let's just talk about podcasting for a little bit. You're trying to pull people's stories out of them. What is that effort for you?
Okay, so I'm gonna back up to
Yeah.
really understanding where this all started. So as a dancer, I was never used to using my voice, nor was I used to sharing any kind of thoughts through my voice and
Yeah.
my actual
I
storytelling.
love that because you mean very literally like using your voice. We talk about, use your voice metaphorically all the time, but you're like,
Yeah.
no, that's just
No, no,
not
no.
how we showed up.
At all. And
Yeah.
you know me, like we go, I wanted to say way back, but actually it's only 2 years. You know where I started, right?
Mhm.
And I went through one of your programs and how many aha moments I had. I think I launched actually the podcast while we were in
right.
it, like
That's
with
right.
2 feet.
The Fearless Speakers Academy, no doubt. So you broke through some fears to actually do the podcast and launch that.
And shame too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and I started originally because I wanted more content. I wanted to challenge me to actually step into something that I knew I could do, and yet I was so fearful of. Because I know that the industry that I'm serving is not used to serving their voice, and I wanted to take that first step and say, hey, if I can do this, so can you.
Oh, goodness. That is the most quintessential piece of what storytelling is in branding and speaking, communicating in any way. I mean, really, just storytelling as a whole is about saying, like, look, this has been my lived experience. So, how does it relate with yours? And if I've been through this, you can get through this too. And then maybe let's take that another step and say, if you need help, I'm an authority on that and I can help you get there. And so is that how does it feel easier? 108 episodes in, is it easier? Are you like, oh, sure, I can show up now, no problem?
So to be completely transparent, absolutely much easier. In the beginning, I would write out every sentence that I would say, and now I'm just pick a topic and I'll go for it.
Wow.
I am getting more selective in who I actually invite on the podcast, because I want to have true conversations that offer value and are not just a complaining streak, and we're not offering any solutions, because that's not how we find change. So I think that's where I'm at. I'm also launching a 4th episode per week where we're just literally talking to younger aspiring artists.
Wow.
So they have, it's contextually focused to them. because that's where the change happens too, right? Like it might be easier at 16 than it is at 25 or 35.
Yeah. I just love this because even the transformation that you've been on here, which I assume as we get into this and get into your story, is a microcosm of your much bigger transformation. You've experienced over 8 months, and there's someone listening to this who has an idea to start a podcast, to write a book, to show up in some new way, and they are holding back. And you're like, in 8 months, um, I'm showing up and essentially winging it and feeling confident in that in a
And
way that you simply didn't have before.
no, because I was so attached to the outcome. I was so fearful of judgment.
Yeah.
I had so much shame deep down hidden in there from, let's say, past failures or stories that I had told myself or had taken on that who I was and what I was capable of.
Yeah.
And when I realized that that's not mine, all of this is free to go, and I can create my own story and my own beliefs. I think that's where the breaking point happened, where that first step into, oh well, what if,
Mm-hmm.
I stopped saying I can't and I started saying, well, what would it look like? What if I could actually, what would that feel like? And being okay with being totally terrible. I mean, when I listen to the
Yeah.
first episodes, I'm like, oh wow.
Uh-huh.
But that's okay, And I'm sure that when I'm 700 episodes into it and I'm listening now, oh my goodness, like seriously, if somebody
Yeah.
listened to that, and that's okay. And I never was okay with the journey, Alex. Like
Yeah.
right? Like from a performing artist, like we're stepping onto stage and it needs to be perfect. And
Mm-hmm.
that was always the life. There was never room to grow or to learn or to make mistakes. And not that I'm okay with it, but I'm getting used to it.
Oof. It's so good. And that's just a little teaser for your story, which we're going to get into in a minute to hear that journey of how you dealt with that need for perfection in the performance. And yeah, how does somebody go through that, experience that, and get to the point where you're at now, where you're like, I'm not, what did you just say? I don't want it, but I'm okay with it. Like I'm not, you don't want to live in that failure or that imperfection, but I'm okay with it. I just, what we will see as you go through your story is that, and because I know your story, we've done some work together. I kind of have a cheat sheet on this a little bit, but as we go through that, people are going to see um, just how that happens and what's required to experience a transformation like that. So I'm excited to get into that, but I do want to touch on this because I mean, you've been in ballet all your life.
Hmm.
And as you just said, we don't use our voices when we're dancing. I am somebody who probably uses my voice too much and says too many words and is learning how to trim that back a little bit. But I recognize the value in body language, obviously, as I love acting and I love what you can do with the blocking and the positioning. There's something really magical about that. But I am so reliant on my voice, and especially in telling a story. So much of what I do is about how to use language to bring us along a transformation journey. So I would love to hear you like just nerd out a little bit here and teach us the storytelling that exists in ballet. And like if somebody knows it, they see this, they're like, wow, I'm going to see some people do some phenomenal moves. And how do they jump 6 feet in the air? How do they stand on their toes? And that's the wow factor. But you see this story in it.
Yes, I do. And oh my gosh, that is such a good question.
How do
Okay,
people tell
how do we
stories with
tell
just
a
their
story
bodies?
with their bodies? You know what? So there are two ways I would say. I prefer the second one. The first one is just through gestures, lifting your arm or pointing to things or shaking
Mhm.
your head or running away. that's one thing. And
So
then,
so there's certain moves there that you would pick up on and be like, okay, well, this is obviously what this means.
yeah, this is obviously the
Yes.
swan flying away. This is obviously, I don't know, Sleeping Beauty falling to sleep or getting her
Right.
crown or having her birthday party.
With
Yeah.
the hand over
Oh,
the head.
that
Yeah, right,
that
right.
kind of, you know, these are the gestures that we're using in ballet without the voice behind it.
Sure. Okay.
However, if there is no soul behind it, it
So is
is
this the
just
second part?
that. Yeah. So the
Okay.
soul, the actually embodiment and the feeling of the story and having that narrative in your head going on, meaning having the words behind it that then create
Mm.
the emotion so you can actually embody the story, is where the magic happens.
So so that you can tell, and you would say, you know, if I went in as a first time viewer and saw a show, I would be able to tell the difference between a performance that had soul in it and one that went through the exact same actions, but the dancers didn't believe it.
Absolutely. Because it's not touching your soul and your emotions if there is no energy exchange coming. Okay, so let's take for an example. You went to see Hamilton, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yes,
So,
thankfully I did. The day
yes,
before the
you
world
did.
shut down.
Exactly.
When the world turned upside down, as he would say. I saw the day before. Okay.
But let's imagine them just riffing off the words and
Right.
singing and just going through the motions without embodying and feeling what these characters are actually saying. Then it would just be as boring, even with
Mm-hmm.
the words, even with their amazing voices, with their
Mm-hmm.
skills. Then it is the same in dance. Like if there is somebody on stage and just pointing and saying to me that,
Yeah.
gesturing that I am so tired, I'm going to go die now. I'm not buying that. And with that, I'm not spending $60 on it to see that because it
Right.
doesn't open my heart.
And I think this is what's beautiful. What you just opened up for me was to recognize that yes, of course, they're putting on a character. And they're not just putting on a tutu, they're putting on a character. They are stepping out on that stage as any actor, singer, performer would do to say, this is who I need to be for this audience right now. And I need to step into that. And the best of the best do that with their whole mind, body, and soul. They become the swan,
Yeah.
the swan princess. I don't know. I'll leave that up to you.
This
Uh,
one.
he becomes Alexander Hamilton. There you go. We lose
There you
Lin-Manuel
go.
Miranda,
Yeah.
and we see, um, I don't know, yeah, an 18th century politician. So, okay, I'm in. I buy it. Anybody that wasn't willing to go to the ballet before now is like, oh, okay, all right, I'm in. I
I'll
could
give
do
it a
that,
shot.
maybe. So, what is it? Tell me. I mean, that's not what you're doing right now. You're not dancing these days. I mean, aside from for fun, perhaps. But what is it? What is the work that you're doing? You know, you've got a podcast and you're bringing people together for what? What's
Mm.
the main work?
Oh, such a such a great question to answer too, because I am finally feeling like I'm living in my purpose.
Yes.
So I started out with coaching dancers on their mindset, on their high performance habits, and really like putting their aligning their goals with their habits.
Mm-hmm.
And that didn't feel right to me. It just was not where I was supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, my bigger mission is actually building a platform that at its core gives the arts their power back, meaning that this chasing of money, that chasing for attention, the chasing of old beliefs has to stop in order for the arts to become sustainable and a healthy environment to be in. Rise Media was born, I think, a month ago on paper. We are incorporated. a place where, we build community, where we have events, where we coach, where we host coaches, where we host content for performing artists so that they have multiple streams of income coming in. We do the same for performing arts companies so that they can stop chasing their donors and just spending 40% of their income on fundraising opportunities and activities every year again. So sustainability is
Yeah.
on the top of the chain. And that's where, like, I'm stepping into so many areas that I really don't know what to do with. And I'm having the best time. I'm exhausted because it is,
Yeah.
on here and on here, it is straining. But it feels like the past 2 years have led me to this point. Like whatever I've learned, like that moment you and I stepped into that
Yeah.
room on Sunset Boulevard, that is where it started.
Which you're referring to a mastermind that
Yeah.
we were a part of. And yeah, it was a really honest, real, vulnerable moment that we shared that, I don't know, maybe it's part of the story as we get into it, a climaxing moment that we'll hit on in just a minute. But you're stepping forward as a leader in this industry to have this impact for the arts that is, as you say, letting the arts actually shine, actually
Yeah. Take
be
their
the
power
arts,
back.
to take their
Like,
power
yeah.
back.
Stop being the victim and start creating something that, our grandkids can enjoy again.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and having it available
Yeah.
and not only to the ones that can afford it.
So from the dancers to the whole company, you're like, I'm there and I'm here to
Oh
support you
yeah,
so
I'm
that
all
we
in.
can actually create something. Um, and in this, what I love is it's the same theme that you just, touched on 10 minutes ago, is you're trying something brand new here. You're doing something that you didn't know was possible 2 years ago, but here you are trying it with this massive vision and not waiting for it to be perfect
Oh
before
no.
you show up. She's like, oh, hell no.
And you know what, Alex? I don't think there is a perfect.
But have you always thought that?
No,
Well, let's go
no.
back there then.
You want to go
Let's
back there?
explore that. Let's, because I that is, for you to say that is massive. I don't think there is a perfect.
No. Yes, and it is massive. You're right. Thank you
So where
for
does this
pointing that out.
idea of power, of getting your power back, of getting stepping into your own power through the imperfection, where does that journey begin for you?
I would say that journey started when I was 10, when I started at the ballet school
Yeah.
and we were put into certain boxes and classes that said what we should be and how we should look like. And if we didn't fit in, we were out, and
Was it your
it,
choice to dance? Were you like,
oh,
mommy?
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like since I was 2 years old, I don't think there was anything else on my mind. I mean,
Mm,
I was certain. If I have ever been certain about something in my life, it was that I had to become a classical trained ballet dancer that stands on stage in a spotlight with a white tutu and pointe shoes on. That was me. That there was just no other way.
okay, so this is because little girls have that fantasy, have that dream. They see that, they imagine that, they dance, they twirl before they even know what ballet is. Little boys and girls are doing that all over the place. Why did you have such a specific and professional vision about that, do you think?
Oh my gosh, that gives me shivers down the spine. Alex, I have thought about that, why that was. It's almost like I didn't pick it. It was picked for me.
Yeah,
Because
that's good.
there was no shaking.
Mhm.
I I didn't I didn't have a choice. That's what it felt like. There was nothing else I would have loved to do. I mean, my parents bless their hearts, have tried many, many things to show me that there is so much out there in the world. I'm like, no, yeah, sure, but not for me. And this is what I'm doing.
Do I don't take a stab at it. What percentage of dancers, professional dancers, feel the same way?
So I would say back then, 60% felt that way.
In Berlin,
In Berlin, yeah. Like
where you
in
were.
our little country
Yeah,
of
yeah,
the Deutsche
yeah.
Demokratische Republik. Yeah, definitely. Because you would have not gotten into that kind of schooling if you didn't have the need to.
With the need. Okay. Now, what do you think it is now? Professional dancers, what number, what percentage of the people who are, again, making money, making a living off of this, or trying to, feel like it's because they have to. It's because there is no choice.
It is such a hard number to put in. I would say I think the ones that are making it to the top, Alex, are the ones that don't give themselves another choice.
Yeah. Okay.
And they also feel that they have put in so much time and effort and money that they clearly don't have another choice because they haven't really learned anything else.
Yeah.
So that choice between having to because your soul says so and a choice to have to because you can't do anything else. I don't know. I don't have a percentage for you. I'm
No, it's
sorry.
good. It's an arbitrary number anyways. I was just trying to get that. I was trying to pull that out of you, I think, which is this thought that, yeah, when you do lean into that, you could be an Olympian, an athlete, or whatever. When you start at that age saying, this is my destiny, this is my thing, and then you get into that, you become that. Then when you leave that, what else is there? There's an outcry of people in that position now, all around the world. I left this thing and I don't know what else to do.
Isn't it the truth? Yeah. And
Um,
can I ask a question?
Please. Yes,
Why do you
absolutely.
think, why do you think that is?
That people get to that point of, I don't know what else to do.
Mhm.
Because there is this beautiful narrative to follow this, to say, I've wanted to do this since I was a kid. I wanted to be an actor since I was a kid because I watched my mom on stage. I wanted to do that. If I had leaned into that and I had said, there's no other way for me, and then I kept doing that and I focused on that, then that's a beautiful story to tell. So we aim for that. We try to do that and create that. And then when you get to the point when you realize, oh, but there's something else, not or, but and
Yeah.
there's something else I'm supposed to do. And this is supposed to somehow serve others. As we discover that, that's when things get confusing because we've been doing something for ourselves to satisfy our own desire, to create our own identity and really feed that then when it shifts and we start to realize that it's not just me in this world, which is a general way of saying that, but truly what happens, then we start to go, oh crap, how do I make that happen now? And that's when people think something's got to shift and I don't feel prepared for this. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to start a business, but I know that a business could be good because I can help people with that. But all that I've done is step under the spotlight or do something in this really small bubble. And that's all that I know. And that's all that I can do. That's all that I am. That's who I am. We have a lot of trouble trying to discover something else about ourselves. Agree?
Oh, 100%. Can I share a side story?
Of
When I
course.
was
Yeah.
about 22, I knew that being on stage was not for me. And I had the hardest time. I mean, it took me till what, 30 to really lean into that feeling and understanding that, yeah, you gave it all and it's okay to change your mind. It is okay to have multiple passions, even though you have been told that you can only have one. I didn't know how to put that feeling that started coming up into words. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what that was. I thought I was lazy. I thought I was burned out. And I think the lesson here is that I think most of us are multi-passionate, and that we can still do things 100% and be all in,
Yeah.
but use, other passions to fill our cup up as well.
Well, and this is what I would say. And so just humor me a little bit and tell me what it felt like when you were a girl, if you remembered, when you were dancing, when you were imagining that, when you were thinking I need to get into dance. What did dance make you feel? What did you feel?
I was absolutely free.
So that's where I would say, right? We talk so much about what we do
Mm.
and not enough about how we feel
This is
or
like the
what we
fifth time. Yeah. This is the theme right now in my life.
Well, there we
This
go.
sentence. Yeah.
Yes. So I think that the most interesting stories are not about how you wanted to be a dancer, you became a dancer, now you help dancers. That's wow, cool, captivating, great, maybe, I don't know, get into the details, get into the struggle, could be something. Tell me how you felt as a kid when you felt free and alive. Then tell me how the dance company kind of constrained that in within you and the freedom was gone. Now tell me about how you, in the most fearful position you've been in, is also the most free. That's a freaking transformation that I want to hear. And that goes beyond just dancing. That also goes to the guy who got into business and started in accounting and then got stuck in a cubicle and now is an investment coach for other people who are changing their life. Do you know what I mean? That goes beyond the thing and gets to the universal feelings. And that makes for an interesting story.
Goosebumps. Yeah. I'm good. Dropping the mic. Beautiful. Thank you very much. I hope your
Excellent.
listeners just really you need to go back to this and see what he did there. That was ingenious. Thank you, honey. And
It's
it's the truth.
right.
Yeah.
Um, so you feel, let's get into what you did. Because I do want to hear this. The story is so fascinating of how you got in at 10 years old into this pristine, um, academy, I guess. I don't know, school.
Cool.
Um, and you rise to the top.
I did all the way to the top from literally the bottom. 5 years out of the 8 years, I was the black sheep in that, who perhaps never is going to be on stage because she doesn't have what it takes.
Mm-hmm.
Her hips are too wide, her feet are not good enough. And I did take these beliefs on.
Mm-hmm.
Later on, they manifested in how I felt about myself. However, all of that, it was my fuel. Like, I never had doubt that I would get through this. Do you know the analogy that when somebody breaks a mirror, they're gonna have bad luck for 7 years?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So the first night at the dormitory, a huge mirror slipped out of my hand and broke into 1,000 pieces. And all of these 10 and 11-year-old girls laughed their little heads out and said, "You're going to be the first one leaving because for the next 7 years, you will have bad luck." And I'm like, "No, this is good luck."
Why?
And it was,
How do you have that truth?
what's that?
How do you know? What is that? What is that at that age that makes you go, nope, not believing that story?
Not, man, Alex, I wish sometimes that I could channel her back into my
Yeah,
life
right.
and have her back and tell me exactly these things over and over again. Actually, I'm in a process of going back to her and tell her,
Mm-hmm.
you got to walk next to me every day because
Mm-hmm.
I really like what you've done back there.
Yeah.
Um, I wish I would know. It was just, I didn't know anything else.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there is failure per se. I was so focused on winning that everything else, no matter what was thrown into my path, I just kicked it aside. I'm like, oh, my hips are too wide. Well, watch me. I'm going to lose another 5 pounds. And here's how am I going to do it. Did I hurt myself in the process? And did I establish really bad habits that did not set me up to become a confident woman later on? Absolutely.
Right.
It was though the only way that I knew how to get through because we didn't have anybody guiding us. We were just told how to show up and what to do and what was expected of us. And how we got there didn't matter.
Hmm.
So I found my way and I looked at other older girls, how did you lose 5 pounds? Like, how did you um, suppress the growth of
Yeah.
your breasts? Like, what did you do? So let me try that too.
All towards the goal
Yeah,
of what? Being prima ballerina? Like, is like,
that
this is,
wasn't even the goal at that point. And I don't even know why. I think that's where my first fears came in and my
hmm,
beliefs that, oh, that's too high. Like, no, not for you. Um, but the goal was to get that contract at the state opera, which I achieved. And then I didn't have another goal because I stopped believing in what else could I do.
so this idea, you're like, I'm gonna be on stage, I'm gonna have these white shoes, and I'm gonna, like, that you realize that how old were you when you got that contract? You step on
So I
stage.
was 18 when I got the contract, but I was performing already in the company when I was 15 in like Swan
So
Lake.
15, you're already like realizing
Yeah.
that image that you had. 18, it becomes official, and then you're like, um, what now?
What now? Exactly.
I just saw a 13-year-old win the bronze medal, or a 12-year-old win the silver medal in skateboarding at the Olympics yesterday. And you just go, you've put your entire life into this, which isn't a long life at that point, but I imagine everything's gotten, yeah. And now you reach the top, or Penny Alexiak, our Canadian swimmer who now has 7 Olympic medals at 21. Yeah, you think, okay, so what's next? And it's got to shift. Something has to shift. If you don't have a next, if we don't put that effort into seeing what goes beyond this, so then what happened for you in that state where you reach this goal, and now what?
What happened to me? Oh, I started acting out. I didn't know what to do. Like all of my fears and insecurities and abandonment issues, all of that was no longer suppressed and it rose to the top
Hmm.
because I thought I'm there and I didn't have another step to go to. So, and not being aware of that, I was building my business for 8 years. And when I
Right.
was in my business, I literally just existed in the business and I was not building my future business.
Wow.
I can make that analogy right now, but I couldn't back then. And that's
Yeah.
where I find we're not setting up our younger people to actually succeed in companies when they're coming in because they think being in the company, that's the goal.
Yeah. So how do you teach someone to think beyond the future that they already are struggling to see?
Mm. Oh gosh, how do you teach somebody that?
So, you know what? So if I know that I'm going to Disney World, and you're
Yeah.
like, yeah, but that might not be the end. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, how can I think beyond that? I just need to think how I'm going to drive the next 24 hours to get there, that's going to be enough of a journey on its own. And you're telling me think beyond that? How?
Okay, I don't think I have the golden nugget here.
Okay.
I think it is by sharing stories actually of what happens when you are just having that one goal and you don't think beyond it, and how quickly we can become comfortable in that comfort zone, in that familiar zone, and we stop living if we don't progress. And I believe that when you reached a goal, it is not about reaching the goal, but it is around it is about the journey and who we are becoming to get there.
Yeah.
And then we have a check-in, and then we say, okay, what else is possible? Like, what else can I do? Who else what else do I want to learn? Like, it's not reaching a goal is not the end. It's the beginning of something new.
Oh, okay. You said you didn't have the golden nugget. That was it. That was
Hey.
teasing us. I think that's it. I mean, you're on the right podcast to talk about this, but that's it. Is by you. How do we teach other people to see beyond their goal? You share the story of how you had to see beyond that goal. So again, now the feeling, you know what it feels like to be in that position, to think that this is all that there is, and then be struck with the harsh reality that I met this, like the expectations were not what was promised. And the spotlight is not as glamorous as you think it is. Or you get to that place and then you feel empty. But beyond that is where we truly find ourselves. And I'm living proof of that. So now you start to share that story, and now people start to go, oh, okay. Oh, maybe this isn't the end. As you just said, the goal is not the end, it's the start of something new. People start hearing that, and it's not empty words because it's your story. The power in that is so palpable. It's astounding. Okay, so let's go through this then. Where does it go from there? You're in this position, and then what? You're on stage, you're a dancer for the next 20 years?
Well, you could be if you make it through.
Okay, well, what was yours?
What was mine? Well, I didn't. I thought changing companies was the right thing to do. I was not aware that wherever we go, we take ourselves with us, and that everything really goes back to our own responsibilities. I looked for responsibility everywhere but in me. And with changing companies and countries and culture, I really quickly realized that no, this isn't either it. So I tried out another company until my body, thankfully, literally gave in and said, no. The 2x4 was huge and just literally knocked me off of my feet and said, no more of this. This is not filling your cup. I could not make that decision because I was so attached to what I thought I was, and I had no idea that I could be somebody else too. I didn't even know who I was, to be quite honest. I knew I was a ballet dancer, and that was it.
You said you moved countries?
Yes, I did. So I moved
So
from Germany to the United States.
and then something happens where was it like in the middle of a performance where you passed out, or like what?
Not in the middle of a performance. I just walked out of a rehearsal that we had done for, I don't know, a month, the same 20-second dance, 3 hours every day. And I just had it. I could no longer, my feet were so swollen, everything was so inflamed. And it was not because my body wasn't capable of handling it, because my mind was done. I was questioning every single word that was said. And mind you, the way that we were treated was also very demeaning and disrespectful. And I was at the end of 20 at that point. So I had acquired some attitude at that point, and I did not want that anymore. Like I had questions and nobody could answer those questions for me. And that's when I got agitated and I said, no. I finally put my foot down and I said, no more. And I walked out and I never came back. Now, did I really hit rock bottom after that? Yeah, I did. Like my depression, I could not, like my body literally refused everything going in until I had released some of the anger that had built up over the past, 18 years.
Yeah. So you have this breakdown? I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that
We can.
as you realize this is not it anymore? You said they have questions that or I have questions that they can't answer. And I think that's what we were talking about earlier, is you get to a point where you're starting to ask questions that the container that you're in, you have been in, can't answer anymore. And then we step out of that, which is rarely a clean move, I think.
It was not clean at all. It was all over the newspaper.
What? Really? Like you're like people are like, she's out. Like what?
Oh no, I left like from one day to another. I did not give the directorship the time of day. I just posted a letter and said, thank you very much. But as of today, I am no longer a member of this company. Right before Nutcracker.
Not the Nutcracker.
Yeah, the Nutcracker. Sorry, James.
No. Well, we just so happens we have James on the phone right now.
Yeah, it just so happened. You know what, though? I would love to talk to that man today.
Well, there you go. If you're listening.
Yeah.
Again, let's come back to what we were talking about before, where there is that shift. You shift out of something, recognizing that it's not going to satisfy you anymore. It can't provide what you thought it would. And you look for more. You're looking for more meaning, more purpose. Ultimately, I think this element of service. How did you find that or step into that? How did you try to create that?
Do you really want to go there? Yeah.
Maybe we'll touch on it.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I had this ingenious idea. Okay. I can't believe what my journey was like. I cannot believe that we're being underpaid and overworked, and why is it the way it is? So that questioning was always in me. I remember even my mother, it drove her absolutely nuts. The continuous questioning of why things are the way they are. And so I'm like, okay, let's just build our own company, not knowing anything about it, no business experience, no fundraising experience. And in a time that, was just right after 9/11 and in the United States, that was the time where many non-for-profit organizations actually shut down because of the lack of funding. And I thought, oh, why don't we build a company in a city that already had a ballet company? So the odds were talking strongly against us. And long story short, it did fail heavily. And it was.
How long was that running? How long was that going?
2 years.
Okay.
However, we gave 32 dancers the opportunity to have a job where they, normally would not find a company to dance in. So that I'm super proud of that. I'm super proud of the fact that we gave it a shot. I'm super proud of writing a business plan that actually proved non-for-profits, arts organizations do not necessarily have to be non-for-profit. And mind you, this was like 2002. And yeah, that That was one of the biggest failures in my life, that I also had accumulated a lot of shame around, that I lost my relationship with my mother with, that luckily I became pregnant right after. So we actually had no time to feel any kind of self-pity, but we had to dig ourselves out of this and ask different questions.
So, I mean, it's so beautiful, isn't it? Like, you try this thing, you give it a shot, and it's raw and real way. This is what has to happen. This is how we have to respond to this, is to create our own thing where we get to decide what it looks like and how dancers are treated and how we make money in this. It is possible, and we need to give it a shot. And that's got to be the celebration part
Oh, it
of
is the
that,
celebration.
right?
Oh, yeah.
Where we look at that and you're like, you did the thing. And as you said, you gave 35 dancers like an opportunity. Like, there's something so amazing about that many of us are not doing that part. So you're showing up today, Susanne, saying like, yeah, no, I'm trying something that's brand new, but you already tried something like this. You already stepped off the cliff, as it were, maybe off the stage, and tried to see what was below. And then you faced the failure and then turned into like, okay, now I got to focus on my family.
Mm-hmm. Stepped into corporate, 9 to 5, comfort,
Yeah.
business. And I have to say, when I connect the dots backwards, it's exactly what I needed to gain more knowledge. Something that I always wanted to do around, learning leadership, learning how to build teams, learning how to clean up a P&L, learning how to make money. And boy, was that just the same sauce as the past 20 years, only that I had acquired a husband and 3 kids. And yet again, was I people pleasing and working 60 hours a week. And I was exhausted and unfulfilled and building somebody else's dream. Yeah. So this time around, it was quicker for me to realize that. And even though I did not have the words, but I could locate the feeling already in me that was, again, so certain, saying, no, you're going to quit this. I don't know what's on the other side, but if you continue this way, you're going to jeopardize your family. And that should be the very most important thing, because I never had that in the way that I am building it right now in my life. So I might as well give it 120%, and not make compromises here.
Okay. It's so good. The whole journey is so good. Do you have a couple more minutes so we can wrap this
Please.
up? Are we okay?
Wrap it up.
All right. Because what is, like, you've given us a bunch of moments along the way.
Mm.
There's, I always say, like, when you're trying to tell your story, don't look for the moment, look for a moment. And you have many moments that have happened. You've got this, like, all right, I was 18 and I hit the stage or signed the contract, and then what? And that helps you sort of become who you are now. But then also this moment where I quit the company. Okay, that helps you become who you are now. And then you start your own thing and that fails, and that helps you become who you are now. So any of those could be this, like, what happened climactic moment of the grand story, if you wanted it to be, right? It's up to you. Tell the story how you want to. As we come to this now, and we look at who you are now, you've got Rise Media, and you've got this grand vision and plan. Let's go back a little bit. Go back from here to, like, what was a moment that specifically, like, tipped the scales. And I mean, you talked about, stepping in that room on Sunset Boulevard. Was that it? What was something that really turned you to become like, okay, this is the mission now. This is who I am now. I'm showing up, no longer building somebody else's dream, but building my own.
It's hard for me to pinpoint it to one moment, because there were so many little moments building into making the decision. But I think I never thought that it's possible. I was so disappointed and sad and angry at the world of ballet that I never ever wanted to put my feet back in. And the moment Chris Harder told me that ego is my biggest overhead and that it is no longer about me, that's where I shifted thinking. That's where I started creating momentum. That's where I started to let go of not all, but some of the limiting beliefs that really were an anchor that did not let me rise up.
Yeah. Wow.
Like that
Ego is your
even,
greatest overhead.
isn't it the truth though? Like I was so reluctant to believe that. And I think when I first heard him say that, I was like, good Lord, Chris, like seriously?
Was that like on a podcast or was that again like face to face?
I think it was in one of our mastermind
Calls or something? Yeah.
calls and I heard it often enough. But when he said it to me face to face, it's like it's all about you, Susie. It's about your fears. It's about your lack of, and you're not making it about the people that you actually want to help. You're not making it about the industry. And when you make that shift, that's when everything changes. And I'm like, why didn't I see this before? This is why having a coach is so essential. Like within
Yeah.
2 minutes, everything changed.
Yeah. So this is the beautiful part. This is where it all comes together, right? Because again, we would look at your story and say there's a number of different transformations that have happened, but if it's one that you said of like living someone else's dream to now living my own of perfect to performing, maybe, I don't know, or from the performance to just playing. I don't know what the transformation is that you sort of step up and you're like, no, this is who I am. This is what's happened. Do you have one that you really land on that you talk about a lot?
I would say from perfect or from needing to be perfect to be playful and powerful. That's where I'm at. Like I am just finding my own power. Like I am just stepping into and accepting that who I am today is not necessarily who I have to be tomorrow. And that's okay. Like I'm not letting anybody down by changing or not making things right for them. So that's where I'm at. And that is such a big step from even 2 years ago where I thought I had to be all of the things for other people.
Yeah.
Even as a mother, right?
Well, yeah. Okay. That's another episode of a podcast. um, so this is what's so beautiful, right? So you've got this story and you've got, again, a number of moments. And if we bring it down to one that you just shared with us, it's I like living your life feeling like you have to be perfect. You have to show up. There's all these expectations on you from others and from yourself. And then there was this shift that happened with this phrase, ego is your greatest overhead. And somebody said that to you and you heard it, you embraced it and you went, holy crap, I am the only thing that's holding me back from being powerful, from being playful and stepping into my power in the most honest way. And so now you get to show up with that story and your organization and your brand and your work and every conversation that you freaking have and say, like you did for me before we hit record today, I'm seeing there's a barrier there. There's something there, Alex. What is that? And what you allowed me to do was to speak through that, to see that I had all these other thoughts and all these worries in my head. And then what did I do? I show up and now here I am playing and just kind of be in my own power in front of you. So you just sharing this story invites others to do the same. And I know that there's people listening who are feeling that they're weighed down by the expectation, whether they're creatives, whether they're artists, whether they're dancers or not. They're feeling like they're weighed down with these expectations around them from themselves or from others. And they would just give anything to feel like they have their own power and actually step into a more playful life. How do they connect with you and start a conversation
Oh, I'm
if that's what they
everywhere.
want to do?
Thank you. Can I just, when you were talking, and I want to go back to your question, I think the line here is from chasing to creating. That's my transformation part of it. Where can you find me? Oh my goodness. I am on Instagram under Susanne Puerschel. You go in the show notes. I'm mostly certain that everything is going to be linked up there. I have a website, SuzannePuerschel.com, pointtorise.com, podcast, Point to Rise. If you just put in my name, you will find me.
You will find me.
You will find.
And that's the key, right? So someone is out there feeling like they're chasing something and they want to get that place of creating. Just start the conversation. Find her and start the conversation. That's it. Gosh, I love this.
Thank you. This is like
so
the best. I am flying.
It's so good. I love what you bring. I love the authenticity that you are showing up with now. And again, it's a story for another day. I'll talk about that moment when we found each other in that room full of entrepreneurs and connected on some level. And I'll talk about that story another time. Maybe we'll have another episode with you and I together and we'll share more stories and we'll dive more into this because I just think this conversation could keep on going. I'm so grateful for your time.
Oh, honey, I am so grateful. Like you always lift me up. Always. All I need to know is that you're there. That's all I need.
Okay.
So thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Bring on the waterworks.